There were so many questions after my last video, so thought I would go in a little bit more detail. If you don't know, that I found out at 50 that the man I thought was my dad for 50 years was not. So a little backstory. Growing up, I grew up in a very Mexican family. Everybody, including my dad, was a little bit on the darker side. Well, if you look at me, I'm not a natural blonde, but when I was little, I had blonde hair and blue eyes. So did my mom, so everybody just assumed I completely took after her, even though my dad was extremely dark. Now, when my brother was born, he looked like he was a mix of Mexican and white, but I did not. My mom left me and my brother in a daycare when I was 2. She ran off with the landlord, and my dad raised me. I experienced a lot of trauma as a kid. My mom became an addict, and my dad was an alcoholic, and at 14, because of some of my dad's actions, I ended up in foster care. Fast forward to last year when my dad passed away in March. I had always kind of had a hunch because the way he treated me differently. My mom had made jokes over the years, that's not your dad. But then when I would say, well, if he's not, you're going to tell me who? And she'd go, just kidding. And she went to the grave with that secret because she died 22 years ago. So I decided this October, I'm just going to take an ancestry kit and just kind of out of curiosity, see if he is my dad. If he is, do I have other family, etc. And even though I suspected he wasn't my dad, because it was obvious when you looked at us together, when I opened the results, I was shook. I found out indeed he was not my biological father. Through some investigating, because I did a 23andMe at first, I didn't really share too much. I did have a first half cousin, and through some digging with a friend, kind of found my biological father. We spoke, and he was like, well, I don't remember your mom, but I did take an ancestry test. I just so happened to take an ancestry too, and I was just waiting on the results. About a week before Thanksgiving or close to it, I opened the results, and it matched me and the guy that I was guessing was my biological father. So that put me in a whirlwind because I kind of felt like my entire life was a little bit of a lie. And I had nobody to really ask too many questions because both my parents were gone. Like, I knew my mom knew because when she popped out a very white kid and, my dad wasn't white, that was a sign. She was also about 4 months pregnant when she met my dad, but my dad told me that when he met my mom, she got pregnant like 2 weeks later. And I was like, Dad, you don't really know after 2 weeks. But I remember my dad telling me about the story of how him and my mom met, and they met on a bus. But he said my mom was kind of into drugs then and was living with somebody that was known to be a pimp. Thinking about that and finding out my biological father, of course, my head went to like, was that one of her Johns? Was it a one-night stand? I don't know. But when I kind of had a text conversation and he just asked, like, what do you hope to, get out of finding your biological dad, me? And I'm like, I don't know. Never done this before. I was just curious. Did he know her? Did he know she was pregnant? This was the 70s. It wasn't like they had cell phones. If it was a one-night stand, she could have just went her own way. Which, according to the biological dad, it was a one-night stand. But because he is so nervous to tell his family, and this has really put him in a tailspin, I was kind of thinking my mom was working the streets during that time because I know she was into like mescaline or I don't know what. Never been into that stuff, but something like that. Between that and knowing where she lived when she met my dad, I've kind of put 2 and 2 together, and I believe that it was probably somebody that she met, i.e. my biological dad, and maybe it was his bachelor party. Because he also just celebrated his 50th anniversary, and I'm 50. Then I talked to somebody that knew my mom, not when she was 20, but just remembers conversations talking about how she did do that for a period of time because she didn't have any money and was on the verge of being homeless, etc. I don't think my biological dad and I will meet. He seems like a really good guy and probably just did something in his 20s, which who didn't? I wrote a whole book on the crap I did when I was 20. But it's pretty messed up, and I'm pretty sure because I did ask him about that and he didn't want to answer. So I felt like his non-answering was my answer. But how's all that for a life change at 50? And here I thought menopause was going to be hard.